Okay family, welcome to part 6 of our how-to video. In this section, I'm going to be discussing with you the second program that we're going to be using for our live stream services, and that is OBS Studio, which once again is a completely free program. And this is the program that we're going to be using to take the output from our video SOM and sharing it to Facebook. So first things first, we obviously need to download this program. So I want to ask you to please open up a web browser on your computer. I'm using Google Chrome, but you can obviously use whichever one you want to. And in the search bar on Google, we're just going to type in OBS Studio. And it'll open this up here. We're going to go to this tab here, which is obsproject.com, and we're going to click on it. And it'll open this page. Obviously, for this how-to video, I'm running everything on Windows. So for the purposes of this how-to, we're going to click on the Windows download, and the OBS program or installation file will automatically start downloading on our computer here. It's about 72 megabytes, depending on the version that we're getting. Obviously, as it updates, it might change, but it'll slowly download. And once it's downloaded, you just click it and open it, and it'll open the installer on your computer. We're going to click yes, and we're just going to install it by default. So we're going to click next, next, install, and it'll then start to extract the OBS program onto your computer, installing it on your computer so that it'll be ready to go. And once this is obviously finished installing, we'll then be able to run the program on our computer. We can go ahead and close Chrome or the internet browser because we don't need that anymore right now. So you can see now the installation has completed. You want to make sure that this Launch OBS Studio is ticked, and then you're going to click Finish. And what it'll then do is it'll then open the OBS Studio program on your computer. This is the auto configuration wizard, which I want to encourage you to work through because it allows us to configure OBS Studio the way that we need to in order for us to use it. So obviously we're going to be using this for streaming, so we want to make sure that the first option there, optimize for streaming, is ticked. We're going to click next. Now this here, don't stress too much about this. This base canvas is basically just based on what your computer's resolution is set at. So just leave that for now. For your FPS, I would recommend changing this to 30 by default and then click next. Now this is where we need to get our streaming stuff. So obviously we're not going to be streaming to Twitch. We're going to click on that and we're going to choose Facebook Live. Now, in order for this to connect to Facebook Live, we need to click Get Stream Key. And this will then open up your internet browser and it'll open Facebook. If you're not logged into Facebook, it'll obviously ask you to log into Facebook, and then it'll take you to this page that is loading here. Now, this might all look new and intimidating. Don't stress about it too much just yet. I'll be getting into this page and how it works a little bit later as we discuss how we're going to be going live. For the purpose of this test, all we need to worry about right now is the stream key. So we're going to click copy. We're going to go back to OBS and we're going to go to the stream key area. We're going to click, right click, paste, and it'll drop it in there. Once it's done that, we're going to click next. Yes. And then it'll basically just do a quick test of the streaming to see the quality and speed of your internet connection, and then it'll give you settings based on that speed or based on that connection. So here at the Crisis Heartbeat office, we've got a full 100 meg up, 100 meg down fiber line. So it's obviously going to give us really, really good quality. So you can tell that, or your internet speed, by this video bitrate here. Now mine is set to 6,000, which is the maximum one. 6,000, in my opinion, is a bit of an overkill. So at a later stage, we're going to lower that slightly, but I want to encourage you to take this video bitrate and write it down somewhere just so that you've got an idea, because your video bitrate is very important to make sure that your video, that the speed that you're uploading is not too high for your internet connection. So once we've got the screen, we're going to write down our video bitrate and we're going to click apply settings. So your computer or OBS Studio is now configured correctly according to your internet speed. So we're now going to maximize it. And this is OBS Studio in front of us right now. It might look a bit intimidating, but don't stress. I'm going to run you through everything that you need to know for our live stream. So once we're in this page, the first thing we need to do is obviously configure OBS Studio correctly for us to use for our live stream. So we're going to go down to the settings. Okay, so when we've clicked on settings, it's going to open up the settings tab and it's going to open up general settings. Now, I know there's a lot going on here and it looks a little bit intimidating and complicated, but don't stress too much about it. In this tab, there's only two things I want us to be concerned about. And the first one is under output, where it says automatically record when streaming. I want to encourage you to click that, because what this does is it allows OBS to save a copy of your recording onto your computer, but it's not imperative. It's just a nice feature to have. So if you don't want to keep a recording or a copy of the recording on your computer, or if you're running low on disk space, you obviously don't need to worry about that. The next one is under projectors, where it says hide cursor over projectors. I want to ask you to please just tick that one as well. Okay, so that's all we need to be concerned about in general. In stream, we're going to discuss that a little bit later when we discuss going live on Facebook. So the next tab we need to worry about is output. Now, the output mode here is simple. If you change it to advanced, you can see it becomes a lot more complicated. So for the sake of this video and for the sake of keeping things simple, just keep it on the simple mode there. Now you can see under streaming, the video bitrate, it's set to default what our stream test did earlier, which is for me 6,000 kilobytes per second. As I said, personally, I think 6,000 kilobytes per second is a little bit overkill. So personally, I would recommend, if this video bitrate is by default for you set to anything above 3,000, I'd recommend just taking it back down to 3,000 kilobytes per second, because I personally think that that's a good quality upload speed. However, if your internet speed produced a result that was lower than 3,000 kilobytes per second, please do not make it higher, because otherwise you're going to put strain on your internet connection. As a matter of fact, I'd actually always recommend going slightly lower than the recommended video bitrate, for the purpose of not putting strain on your line, or if your internet connection takes a dip, then it won't affect your stream. So say for instance your internet stream gave you a video bitrate of 2,000 kilobytes per second, I would then recommend taking this and just dropping it to 1,500 kilobytes per second. And it slightly lowers the quality, but it's really not that noticeable. I mean, if you've got a slow internet connection, you can even go as low, or an unstable internet connection, you can even go as low as 750 kilobytes per second, and that'll still give you sufficient quality for Facebook. However, I would not recommend going slower than 750 kilobytes per second. So anything between 750 and 3,000 is what I'd recommend based on your line speed. And once again, whatever it gave you as your video bitrate recommended, always go slightly low. So if it's 2,000, if the recommended rate is 2,000, drop it by a couple of hundred and maybe go for 1,700 or 1,500. If it gave you a bitrate of 1,200, maybe drop it to 1,000, just to be on the safe side, because you don't want your video to lag when you're going on Facebook Live. So the rest of the settings here are pretty standard and pretty sufficient. I wouldn't recommend changing anything else unless you've got a slow computer. So the tab below here is recording, and it's obviously going to tell you where, if you are saving recordings, where it's going to be saving them. If you want to change it, if you've got an extra hard drive or an external hard drive, you can obviously click browse and set it as a new destination, but by default, this is what it is here. Now, if you've got a Foster computer, like I said, these settings are perfect. They're perfect as they are by default. However, if you've got a slightly slower computer, maybe an i3 or an older i5, I'd recommend changing one or two things here. But if you've got a newer i5 or an i7, or your computer's fast, leave it as it is. So if you've got the slower computer, what you can do is you can click on this tab here and change the encoder preset from quality to performance. And what that'll do is it'll just free up a little bit more resources on your computer. And the next thing you can do as well, if you've got a slightly slower computer, is change recording quality from this to same as stream. And all these things do is basically just allows your computer extra speed to process other things like your streaming and like running video SOMs. But like I said, if you've got a slightly faster computer, you don't need to worry about this. The default settings are perfect. The rest of these tabs here, audio, video, etc., I wouldn't recommend stressing about them too much, because we applied the stream defaults. Everything should be set how we need it to. So once we've made our settings, I'm obviously just going to take this back to quality and where it was. and then I'm going to click apply. Okay. So now we've set everything up in the settings that we need for OBS Studio. We'll go back to the settings tabs a little later to set up the live streaming, but I'll be covering that in a later section. So now we've got OBS Studio set up. Now we need to set OBS Studio up to receive the signals that we needed to receive from our sound desk as well as video sound. So the way that we're going to do that is we're going to go to the bottom left over here where you see scenes and sources. Now these two features have a lot of capabilities on their own, but for the sake of simplicity and for the sake of this video, we're just going to add the video and audio sources that we need to make our live stream work. So firstly, we're going to add a video source. So under sources, we're going to click on the little plus tab here, and we're going to go up to display capture. And for the sake of this, I'm going to rename it projector capture, because at the end of the day, that is what it is actually capturing. It's capturing our projector screen. So I just call it that to avoid confusion, and I click OK. Now by default, it'll capture display 1, which is why you're seeing this over here. So we're going to, where it says display, we're going to change it from display 1 to display 2. Now this is our second display, and basically what our second display is our projectors in the church. So as you can see, the ekwipt logo is currently being displayed there, and that is because in VideoSom, I've got the ekwipt logo and I'm projecting it through VideoSom onto the church's projectors, and consequently OBS Studio is capturing that very image. So we select display 2 under display, and we untick capture cursor, because if the cursor goes over it, we don't want it to capture, and we say okay. We now have our video source for our live stream, which is capturing our church's projector screens. Now we need to add our audio source. So we're going to click on the plus tab again, and we're going to select audio input capture, and I'm just going to leave that as it is there, and I'm going to click OK. Now I would recommend that you don't leave this device as default, because sometimes when you plug an external camera or something in, it can mess up these settings. So what you're going to do is you're going to click on device, and you're going to look through your various sources here. Now you probably won't have all of these sources, but what you're going to look for is something along the lines of external microphone or audio jack. For my instance, for this video, I'm using the microphone here, the Samsung microphone. So I'm going to select that as my audio input capture, and you must just find out which one yours is, and then you're going to click OK. Now we've added our audio input capture, which is basically going to capture any audio that comes into the computer off of your church's sound desk. So now if you look in this audio mixer section, there's a couple of different bars going on there, which can cause a little bit of confusion. The only one that we really want to see is this audio input capture. So what I'd recommend doing is, here you can see these little white speakers on every channel other than your audio input capture. I would recommend muting it by clicking on the little white one underneath it. So this is desktop audio, click it, and it goes red, which means it's muted. And here's microphone auxiliary, and now it's muted. Now you can see that little bar has disappeared. However, audio input capture is still there, and that little level bar is bouncing up and down. So once you've muted all of the other channels except your audio input capture, to avoid further confusion, we're going to click on the settings cog over here, and we're going to go up to hide, and we're going to hide that, and we're going to hide that, and we're going to hide any other audio mixer channel apart from our audio input capture. So here we've got our audio, here we've got our audio, and here we've got our video, which we can see over here. Now, just before you start going live or anything like that, I'd recommend testing your audio input capture to make sure that you have selected the right device. So if you've got your church's sound desk plugged into the computer, what I'd recommend doing is turning all the levels right down on your sound desk and speaking a little bit, or playing a song off of your phone, something to produce audio. And if all those levels are down and muted, and it means that there shouldn't be anything coming off of your sound desk. So if you talk in your church and all that kind of stuff, this audio input capture should not be moving. If it is moving or jumping up and down as you speak, as you can see, it's jumping up and down as I speak. If I stop speaking, You can see it sits a little bit there on the bottom, just flickering around, and the reason for that is sometimes background noise or maybe a little bit of interference that may be coming through. But if it's bouncing up and down like mine is when you are speaking, then that means that you've selected the wrong audio device. And to change that, you can simply go select audio input capture and then go and change your device over here, and then try it again and try it again. And when you get the one that's muted, then you can leave it as that. And then to test that it's working properly, pick up a microphone, turn the level up for that on your audio sound desk and start speaking to it. If it still stays muted, then that probably means that you've once again selected the wrong channel. So it's just a little bit of trial and error, the way you select audio input capture and choose your different devices until you see the right one coming off of your sound desk. And like I said, the way to do that is to mute your sound desk and talk, and then see if that works, and then obviously grab a microphone and talk as well and put the levels back up and see if that'll work. So we need to make sure that what we're getting on the audio input capture is exactly what is coming off of our sound desk. And then we've got it. We've got our audio input capture, which will record our microphones and whatever we speak. And if our computer is outputting to our sound desk as well, it'll also capture that, because basically if the sound desk is outputting it to the church's speakers, it'll also output it back to the laptop, which is a wonderful feature. So it's all there, it's nice and easy, it's set up. So now the next thing to do with the audio input capture, as you can see on this graph or this bar over here, it's bouncing up and down as I speak. And what we want to do is we want to adjust this volume slider over here to avoid any clipping. If I speak into the microphone like this, you can see that it's gone completely red, and that is because the audio is clipping, and you can probably hear that it sounds pretty bad as well. So to avoid this, we are going to pull down this slider over here, and as I pull it down, you will see it starts clipping less and less and less and less, even though I'm still talking into the microphone. And you can see over here that the numbers are going down as well, because we're adjusting the audio input, and you can see it's going down and down and down and down and down. So ideally, you want to adjust this to a position where this little graph is jumping into the yellow and maybe a little bit into the red, but you don't want it to jump too far. My personal recommendation is to set it anything between -6 and -3 decibels. I believe that's the right place to put it. As you can see with mine now, it's going into the yellow, maybe a little bit into the red, but it's not clipping. And the best way to test this is when you have your full band and everything going with praise and worship, so you can see if this is clipping or if it's not, and then obviously you can just adjust it accordingly. Another thing that can sometimes happen is the sound coming off of your sound desk is maybe too soft, in which case you'll probably see the little bar just jumping around a little bit like that, even though this is sitting on full. So a way to fix that is to click on the settings cog, go up to filters, and then you can see this new screen over here. We're going to click plus, and we're going to click on gain, and we're just going to say yes. And then you can use this slider here to add additional volume to your audio until you can see that it's getting at the desired level. So you can pull it up. See, if I pull it up now, everything's gone red. So if I pull it back down, I'm just going to make it back to 0. Then you can see it's back where I set it, and I'm going to click close, and we're done. Now we've officially set up our audio, we've officially set up our video capture. So now OBS Studio is officially ready to go live to Facebook, basically, because we've got our audio, we've got our video. So that's it, basically. That's OBS Studio set up and ready to go. So I'd like to encourage you to please tune in for the next section, where I'll be showing you how to go live using OBS Studio.